You're right, everyone, and welcome to one more episode of Talking Points with Capstone. I'm Dr. Sujaya Banerjee, and I lead the Capstone organization. We are in the space of leadership change, culture. We work with organizations in the space of culture integration, post mergers and acquisitions. We work with over 300 companies in India. We work with a whole host of companies in association with Duke Corporate Education internationally, all very large marquee brands with very exciting stories. We have won accolades for being a foremost organizational development firm, both in India and internationally. So that's what the Capstone organization is for those who are joining in for the first time. I'm Dr. Sujaya Banerjee, and I'm going to be in conversation today with on a theme that's very topical, but with somebody who's extremely interesting. And I will share with you his profile in just a second. I want to spend a couple of seconds to talk about the theme that we are joining in on, and I know this is widespread. Practically everyone has done a talk around AI, and I want you to know. So this is not just another conversation around AI. We're talking to one of the country's most foremost experts in this space. The Capstone organization also works with Dr. Shailesh Kumar on so many of our clients. And I have to say that this is a very special guest that we have for you here today. And our theme goes beyond the value proposition of AI, that it's time to adopt AI, that you will not be a modern 21st century organization if you don't understand how to integrate AI. We're moving beyond that to be able to talk about the transformation challenge of adopting AI. And I'm sure this conversation is going to resonate with lots of people who are still considering walking this path. This is going to be very interesting indeed, and will resonate for the ones who are already at advanced stages of building an AI first organization. And like we're saying in the topic, that we're talking today about the shift from digital adoption to intelligent transformation. And so, transformation being the key word here, we will involve the very learned Dr. Shailesh Kumar in conversations with us here today. So, thank you, Shailesh, first of all, for agreeing to join me on this conversation. Move
Thank
forward.
you.
I
Thank you
will
for
call
inviting
out.
me.
Thank you. Move forward. Can you move the slide forward? Yes, I want to be able to introduce Dr. Shailesh Kumar to everyone. He's a chief data scientist and CoE AI ML. He's the dean at Jio Institute. He's a senior advisor for Short Talk. He is visiting faculty for machine learning in the Indian School of Business. And like I said, we work together with Dr. Shailesh Kumar on various AI adoption exercises, indeed teaching organizations and leading organizations, including IT and ITES organizations, how to start embracing the AI mindset. So, with that, I have a little preamble, Dr. Shailesh, before I get down to some of our discussion threads for the audience that's joining in here today. But very quick ones for the audience. Please treat this as a learning session. Keep your comments and your questions coming in. We're interested to be able to know what your views are. We're also interested to see how we find time over the next 1 hour to be able to answer some of your questions. And I'll also ask you to wait a bit to listen in on what it is that we're talking about today, because we could already be talking about things that are interesting you around the theme of AI and AI adoption. So you will all agree that we spent 2 decades mastering digital transformation, optimizing processes, centralizing data, making legacy systems talk to each other. And that was our first revolution. It was hard, but the rules were linear: invest in tech, train the people, and measure the ROI. Today, we are staring at a very, very different beast. We're talking about intelligent adoption. And AI doesn't just automate tasks, it challenges authority, it rewires decision making, it can challenge the ego of many people who consider themselves experts. The shift is from digital to intelligent. It's not a technical upgrade, it's a psychological and a sociological upheaval within organizations. I will repeat that. It's not just a digital to intelligent technical upgrade, it's a psychological and sociological upheaval within organizations. And here is the uncomfortable truth: most AI transformations fail not because the architects of the AI intervention had hallucinated the model, or because the leaders hallucinated about the opportunity. It's largely because they believed, as they were putting their sort of value propositions together, they believed in the agility of their own system, which oftentimes fails them in the labyrinths of approvals. And so you may have an idea and you may know what it is that needs addressing, but you can well be heaped into and drawn into unending labyrinths of approval to be able to do what it is that you're intending to do. And as the pressure mounts to deliver use cases across the value chain, leaders can find themselves absolutely trapped. They can face the self created bureaucracy, can experience high levels of emotional exhaustion, and conflicts that turn into existential conflicts within the organization. The question is no longer how fast we can deploy AI, but rather how are we building the wisdom, resilience, and the emotional agility that we require to be able to survive the adoption curve of AI. And so, Professor Shailesh has spent many years in the front line, not just teaching theory, but also working with organizations through the AI pilots. And I'm hoping that through the conversations we're having here today, Dr. Shailesh, we'll be able to throw some light and inspire more people to be able to want to walk through the AI first journey. So, what I've done to be able to make our conversations more meaningful is to be able to use some images around my discussion threads. And so I'm going to share the very first image. Please move forward. So you've got this now. Everyone adopted AI, and you can look at what the stages of adoption might really be. So for me, this is alluding to digital transformation requiring linear change management. AI adoption is non-linear, right? And it's also probabilistic. How do leaders, what I'm trying to say is the success ratio is so high. So many people believe that they've adopted AI, but the success ratio is very low. How do leaders rewrite the playbook when the technology is changing even more faster than the change curve? So I'm going to
Right.
invite you to be able to respond to this.
Yes.
This is not a very exciting, image because it's showing you how everyone believes they adopted AI. There's just very few who can actually, redesign and do what is required for true adoption. So I'll pause here to be able to bring you in on
Yes.
probabilistic and non-linear adoption.
Yeah. So let me give a little bit of context. So, as Charles Dickens would have said for today, these are the best of times and the most confusing of times, right? We all know that AI first organization is something we want to build. Well, the terminology keeps evolving, AI native and all of that, but we don't know what it means. And that is even that goalpost keeps moving, right? So this is a very interesting time. This is pretty much the time when you can connect it to the early days of the IT transformation, which was a confusing time. A lot of technologies were emerging, nothing was tested, nothing had ROI, but people were trying to make sure they are ahead of the curve, right? So when you are in that kind of a transition phase, we are going through a phase shift now. We went through many phase shifts as human civilization: the Stone Age, the Bronze Age, the fire, the wheel, the electricity, the internet, the IT, and now the AI, and future will come, right? Quantum and all that. Every time we go through these phase shifts, we go through this period of confusion, right? Because technology is getting generated at the same time. People are trying to find use cases, stay ahead of the curve. Again, technology keeps changing, and we keep learning that, oh, this is not what we wanted. We wanted something else. So this is that weird time, if you will, right?
Yeah.
So instead of trying to rush into things, I have learned a few high level principles I just want to share, right? So the first is, AI is not an afterthought anymore, right? It is not something like a cherry on the cake. You have your
Yeah.
IT system running, you have your processes set, and now you want to add AI on top of it. This is not AI first. The AI first mindset means, can you reimagine your business processes, your organizations, your customer expectations, your operations? Can you reimagine everything with AI? As if it was born in the post AI era, how
Right.
would thing be different. So the word that I like more than the word transformation is the word reimagination, which means what if education, healthcare, agriculture, manufacturing, retail, pharma, you know, what if all these were born today? How would they
Yes.
be very different? And a great
Yes.
example of that, like if you look at Ola, Uber, and Swiggy, Zomato, they are post AI companies, right? They have mastered the art of bringing AI into the mix, into their operations as they designed and implemented them. But what
Right.
are old companies doing? The banks and manufacturing and retail, they already had a running business. They
Right.
had a process that they had thought about in the previous era, and now they are trying to AI-fy those processes all over again, right? As if it's an afterthought. So that is
Right.
one thing we have to learn, which is scratch everything, go back to the whiteboard, assume AI is everywhere, redesign your processes, right? So that is one
Right.
thing. You cannot treat it like a incremental change anymore. The
Right.
second thing I've learned is a lot of us have an AI strategy coming out of, what we learn from each other, what others are doing, what McKinsey is saying. Everybody's creating AI strategies, but nobody knows how to convert that AI strategy into a platform. And what
Yes.
you show here is exactly what people are thinking is a platformization approach. Let's buy some AI tools, right? So I have a Vertex license, Opus license, whatever license, and somehow train my people to become Gen AI experts, prompt engineers and what have you, and
Right.
agentic experts. And hopefully we will become an AI company, right? It's kind of
Yeah.
like saying if I buy a lot of, you know, wood and nail and hammer, I'll create a beautiful masterpiece of a furniture. There's a
Right.
big difference between buying tools and
Yes.
becoming a AI first company. So yes, this is the
Right.
first step, but we need to know how to use the tools, how we need to build what I call the operating system mindset before
Yes.
we buy the tools, right? So let me
Yes.
come to that third point, which is if I think about how, let's say, electricity is around, right? Why is electricity a major technology? It is not because somebody here built a bulb, somebody there built a wire, somebody built a switch, somebody built a transformer. The secret that we all have electricity today is
Yes.
because somebody thought of the grid, right? Where everything could be connected to each other,
Right.
standardized, easy to use, safe to use. And if I use the same four words for AI, right? Safe to use, easy to use, cheap to use, standardized, that's exactly what AI will do to mankind, what electricity has done. It will become ubiquitous. It will solve many, many use cases. It will be very
Right.
easy and cheap to use over time. Uh, and there's no need to sort of become panicky about it and say, oh, I'm the early adopter. Like when we look back at electricity, nobody
Yeah.
worries about those kind of things, right? We just have to, as a whole species, we have to look at it carefully and systematically, like we did with electricity. And the key is the grid, right? So let me talk a little bit about that because that brings clarity to this slide, which is, one day Mr. Ambani called me and he said, Shailesh, you are building the brain for science, but we need to integrate it with the body.
Yes.
Without the body, the brain is useless. Without the
Yes.
brain, the body is not intelligent. What does that mean is the body is the rest of the organization, right? The sensors, the data layers, the operations layer, the business layer, the people. If I don't think about it in an integrated manner, if I think of AI in isolation as if, I just have to buy a tool and start using it, it will not work. And we are seeing promises of agentic AI failing because we have not thought through the integration of it with my data layer or improving the data layer. And now Databricks, for example, is doing a great job of improving the data layer for everybody so that we can
Right.
build agentic on top of it. So we need to think of this holistically. We can't think of a bulb and a wire separately. We have to think of
Yes.
like an electricity operating system. We need to
Right.
start thinking about building the whole, not the part. AI is just part of the bigger operating system. And the way I have started to learn to think about it from Mr. Ambani is how do we think about manufacturing as an operating system? AI is part of that. Retail as an operating system, AI is part of that, right? And if you think top down, create a blueprint first and say these are my workflows, these are my uh, use cases of AI in these workflows, that is when we'll have clarity. We'll know what to use where, right?
Mhm.
Agentic and LLM is not the only part. That is probably
Yes.
1% of what AI brings to the table. Uh, there's a lot more to AI. We have lost sight of that. So once we understand what is required and what is the blueprint of an organization we want to create, or a business and process, then we'll be able to clearly bring the right tools for the right thing instead of bringing one tool for everything, right?
Right.
And that kind of confusion has to go away. And
Right.
people have to step back and think about AI from a top-down, big picture approach, as opposed to collection of tools that we have
Hmm.
done in the past. When we were
Yes.
building IT infrastructure, we started collecting tools. SAP
Right.
built something, we bought that, right? Some
Right.
ERP came, some CRM system came, some whatever else came, and we started building this collection of tools and thought we are
Hmm.
doing IT, but we were
Right.
collecting a bunch of products there, and we didn't know what to do with them because they don't talk to each other. We are
Right.
going to head into the same era if we repeat that mistake again. So we just
Right.
have to think business first, process first. AI is just an enabler, a very powerful enabler, but we cannot lead with technology. We have to use technology and lead with business process and come back to how the technology can be used, right? So
And I
that
think you're
kind of,
making some very valid points here, Dr. Shailesh. I think you started off by talking about a first principles approach
yeah.
in terms of being able to relook at things, from the start rather than, with the layered understanding that we have of the way in which we run things. And I think you're at a very interesting point right now where you're talking about clarity. And also you're saying you can start small. You don't have to go out there with a big bang execution. Understand what it is that you want your business process leads. AI is an enabler. That's largely what you're really saying. I
Yeah.
have another image to be able to take us to a continuing sort of discussion thread. And this one is saying, don't try to change someone's life before you understand their world, right? And so, would you agree that you mentioned the need for leaders to provide clarity, or to count on clarity before they begin? So, when the C-suite starts demanding ROI, but the data science team speaks in confidence intervals, how does a leader simplify without sort of dumbing out? What does intelligent clarity actually look like in practice? So here we're saying that if you don't understand your world, or you don't understand the world, even for the tech people inside the organization, if you don't understand the world that you're serving when you're trying to enable them with AI, and there needs to be the humility to be able to first of all understand what it is that you're trying to address. And we're saying that providing clarity sounds simple, but it's basically like an era of black boxes, and the leader needs to be the translator in the system, which becomes really difficult. So I really want to know, what does intelligent clarity really look like? What I see operative in this slide is the word empathy, which is, do we
Hmm.
really understand how things work, and how can, like you said, use AI as an enabler to be able to enhance this? Is there that kind of knowledge residing in the organization about the organization? It was my other question, because
Hmm.
that's where I see a lot of organizations lost. If they try and bring in someone from outside, it takes ages to be able to actually understand what's going on. And
Yep.
also, the reality of the workplace is that with people in and out of the organization, there is so much of layered execution that is sitting one on top of the other, that the clarity itself becomes the biggest challenge in being able to go ahead. So even if you understand this is an enabler, it takes a while to be able to understand where and how this enabler is going to actually enable the system. So tell us a bit about this from your execution experiences. That how do you make some change someone's life by first understanding their world, which is to be able to bring that clarity so that you can start small, or you how do you kind of use the a perspective building that comes out of first principles thinking to be able to first start with this clarity of where it is that you're going to, whether start small, start big, to be able to create the impact.
Yep. So what I've seen in the last 20 years, I've worked with many, many organizations, big and small, startups to Reliance, right?
Yeah.
Google and everyone. Uh, Now, what I've learned is that there are two types of people in any organization, the technical or the experts, right? There are two types of experts in an organization. One is what I call the domain experts, right? These are the people who understand, for example, how banking works, or how insurance works, or how railways works, or how whatever, right? Like
Right.
manufacturing work. And these people get trained in what we would call business schools, or agriculture schools, or medical schools, or law
Yeah.
schools. So these guys are very good in understanding domain, understanding processes, understanding metrics, understanding decisions. They completely, spend a lot of time thinking about that. Then there's this second group of people who are what I call digital experts, right? These are the people who grow up in computer science, IT departments, or data science, or data engineering, or AI. These guys are the digital thinkers, the digital brain of the organization, and there's a domain brain of the organization. And there is a very beautiful complementary thing that they bring to the table, right? So the digital people know how to build, but they don't know what to build. And the domain people know what to build, but they don't know how to build.
Yes.
Now, the problem I have seen is whenever we want to build something, right, like a solution for a big problem, or the entire, domain operating system, the problem is when you bring these two people together, they don't even know how to talk to each other. Because the guy who is, let's say, doing, petroleum engineering PhD, and knows how to run a refinery, doesn't know how to talk about, data and all of that. But this guy doesn't know how to talk about refineries, right? So the first thing I want to do is think about how to create a third category of people who is a mixture of domain and digital thinker. So the future belongs to those people now. So the idea is a domain thinker cannot remain purely a domain thinker anymore. They have to upskill themselves and become digital thinkers. And a
Right.
digital thinker cannot remain a digital thinker. They have to throw themselves inside the domain, attend the call centers, go out on the floor, understand how the processes work and all of that.
Yeah.
Only then, when these two groups of people will come together, they'll be able to create what I call the third thing, which is the solution, right? So technology plus domain is equal to solution. And unless we break this silo, unless we say, no, no, you are an SME, or you are a digital guy, you write a document, we will read it, we will build it, you stay away from it, you will test it, we will hand over. This kind of a siloed approach is not going to work, right? We want to create a culture of co-creation. Co-creation is a very powerful idea, that in order to build a complex system like a refinery operating system, or a healthcare operating system, we need to understand healthcare, for example, from all the users and consumers of healthcare, right? We want to understand it from the doctor's perspective, hospital's perspective, pharmacy perspective, lab perspective. And a pure digital guy will not know all this, so they'll have to immerse themselves into the domain, be able to then design all the workflows and implement all the workflows, right?
So,
Now,
sorry, Dr. Shailesh, I'm just going to interrupt you for a second,
yes,
right?
yes,
I mean,
yes,
I'm hearing you say many things which kind of are ideal situations which don't actually practically exist. And because our conversation is about adoption right now, I want to be able to enumerate some of them. For
hmm,
example, clarity is very difficult to seek within the organization. Even
yeah,
when you say domain expertise, there's no domain expertise that's only available with one group of people, because it's very difficult even within organizations to get people who understand through the entire value chain. You know what
yeah,
I'm saying? Then we're talking about co-creation, which is rooted in collaboration, which is so difficult to find within organizations. You know what I mean? It's something every organization is really struggling with. So,
yes,
in the absence of collaboration, it's so difficult to be able to build what you need as energy for co-creation.
yes,
The other part being that, we're missing a group of people. So you're saying domain and technology, and they come in together. And normally, people who know domain and technology are going to be in demand in the future. And I'm saying whether it's domain or technology, there's a third group of people one needs the ability to be able to reckon with, which is the risk committees, the
yes,
ethic boards, the legal reviews. I mean, all of these are realities that people have to navigate before they can execute something. So I
yes.
wanted your view on this, which is that our adoption philosophies that we're talking about
Mhm.
are often far from reality within the work in the workplace. So how do you kind of build for this as you go along? And when organizations have succeeded, did they already have that culture, or did they kind of adopt that culture to enable AI projects to succeed? What's the driving force? Because I heard you mention that don't be in a big hurry. You know what I mean? It's not a race. So pick it up slowly, pick it up as you want. And I'm afraid a lot of organizations don't have the luxury of this because of board FOMO. They're being pushed with deadlines by which the organization wants to see use cases. And I
Correct.
dare say that this requirement in terms of let's experiment, let's get this going, is a conversation that is more than 3 years old in most organizations, and they've still not seen anything great come out of this. So
Correct.
I know these are a couple of questions, but I do want you to respond to the third group and also
Mm.
some of the elements of culture that we spoke about right now, which are far from reality when you actually experience organizations.
Yeah, yeah. So let me come back to that. So just one more thing on the previous point, that this is a very special time. The last 6 months is very different than the last 60 years. Let me repeat, the last 6 months is very different than the last 60 years. Why? Because today, if I'm an agriculture expert, I'm a domain expert, I want to build an agriculture platform for the country. Can
Right.
I not do it? I can. I don't have to know any programming. I can go to Claude. I'm going to be the best prompt engineer for Claude. I will have the most clarity about what I need to build, and I'll be able to tell Claude and it will design and build for me. Similarly, so what it says is that a pure domain person can become a very 90% technology person and build platforms, and a pure digital person who wants to say, hey, I'm an AI expert, I want to build something in agriculture. What that guy can do, he can study the details of agriculture with research tools like Gemini and Claude, and understand agriculture at the right level of abstraction to be able to create the reasonable prompt. So the
Right.
era of digital domain separation ending is one of the most important things that is happening in the last 6 months.
Right.
Whoever recognizes this is going to create that third pillar of people, which I call, the hammer people, the nail people, and the chair people, right? The
Yeah.
hammer people, technologists, go to IITs, the nail people, domain, go to IIMs, and then we need this third group of people. They will bring clarity. And you are right, a complex business is not as simple that one person will know everything. That's why co-creation among, because the output of mine will go as an input to yours, and then keep going. So we cannot just design things in silos and all of that, right?
Yeah.
Now, ethics is a very important part. We are still learning how we will misuse AI knowingly, unknowingly. I'll give you one very simple example. I was with Google and I built something for Google search, Google Gmail, right? Gmail autocomplete. And I thought, being a pure technologist, without thinking about the legal ramifications, I thought that if I could mine my own data within my Gmail and create the phrases and put them in auto suggestion, things will work out. When it went for a legal review, they said, oh, your AI system is reading people's email not like a person, but it will give that impression that, oh, somebody is reading my email and giving me the perfect auto suggestion. So sometimes ethics is more important than this, but we should not hide behind it. We should create the right legal frameworks, ethical frameworks, which are getting evolved.
Yes.
The GDPR in the Europe, India's DPDPI Act, and all that. So these frameworks are designed to balance innovation with ethics, and we need to keep moving in that direction. So keeping all this in mind, right? So once you understand domain, you understand privacy, you understand violation, you understand bias. If you think holistically, that is when you will be able to create such systems, right? We cannot trust our AI systems we buy to suddenly start working, because let's say in the past, not now, there was a bank who is giving loans to white men and not to blacks and women. That data is still there, and now you have trained a model on that data. That model will be biased, right? So in the new context, the ethics becomes very, very important
Yes.
guardrail. So
Yes.
hallucination is a different guardrail, ethics and all that is a different guardrail. We are still going to continue to breach certain unseen ethical boundaries, which we will
Yes.
see again and keep doing it. This is an era of transformation, of learning, and therefore we should be open to such violations because we didn't know, or we could not test the model completely. Things will break down. Like, for example, when early electricity was coming, I'm sure people got the shocks, and some people died when putting the wires because they didn't know. And then insulation came, and all that came. So as
Yes.
technology moves, use cases both positive and negative evolve, and ethical frameworks has to evolve with that, right? But
Right.
that clarity from all these angles, from policy and
Yes.
ethics angle, technology and domain angle, is very important. And it's hard to have that level of clarity in a single person. But if you get
Yeah.
that, that is the ultimate one-man army you need in a company to build a platform for you.
Okay. Okay. All right. I'm going to move to the next part of the conversation, and I'm going to ask for yeah, my next image for you. And I know this is going to look very, very familiar. AI first, data first, right? And here, what I'm trying to basically ask is, everyone is preaching the growth mindset until the third use case fails.
Correct.
So the first part of this image that I want to look at is what is the penchant for example, things going down like they are in the second image. You know what I
Correct.
mean? So I'm sorry, in the first image, yeah, things going down in the first image. Yeah, what is the penchant for this kind of scenario? So I want to talk about growth mindset in the context of the experimentation required to be able to hit upon what your solution might really be. Under pressure, leaders revert to command and control. So even the style changes back to command and control. How do you build resilience, emotional agility? There are just so many behaviors, and I have one of the participants on this session here today also talking about alluding to the need for EQ, higher EQ within the organization, and all of that. And I'm talking about emotional agility to sit with the discomfort of these probabilistic outcomes. You know what I
Mm.
mean? Because the outcomes are probabilistic, you
Mm.
require high levels of resilience, and with people having the kind of patience that we're talking about in the context of while you're advocating growth mindsets, having the ability to be able to wait for the repeat experimentation and the outcomes. Where does resilience cross into toxic perseverance? And I'm also asking this because I know of situations where they started off with great gusto to be able to adopt AI, and they've either ended up with people being asked to leave, or they've ended up with groups of people who have decided to resign because there's just so much conflict that they've decided not to do this anymore and not even to participate in the journey of the organization. So I think
Mm.
it's important to be able to understand your perspective on this. And I think a related question is obviously the need for data and
Mm.
simplification, and which does not exist, is not a reality in most organizations, as the base layer before you can start looking at an environment that is adopting AI. So I wanted your response on both. The first one is the penchant for experimentation,
Yeah.
growth mindset, and the impatience that you see from the boards and the rest, and the impact all of this has on culture, the need
Mm.
for emotional resilience to be able to actually go through failure stories as you're trying to do this. When things fall through and they're just not working out, and when we are seeing all of this fall through here, which is a lot of disaster, I include the disaster of people leaving, teams not wanting to work together, all of that which people are experiencing in the manner in which they haven't seen many other change agendas create that much of turmoil across teams. It's also happening in panic because you don't know whether you're on the right path, you don't know what you're going to produce, and if you have continual pressure from the boards, it's very difficult to be able to guarantee any kind of outcomes. Like I said, their probabilistic outcomes can create high levels of insecurity.
Yeah. Yeah. No, let me first address the AI versus data first issue, right? So if you look at the companies who are building the foundation models, they are, the Googles and the Microsofts and the, other the new age companies, OpenAI and all that. These companies were born in a digital era, in a very mature digital era. They in fact created and redefined the digital era, and they started with building their data layers already 20 years ago. When I was at Google, it was just amazing to see how easy was it to find all the query logs, all the YouTube videos. Their data layer was so well done already.
mm,
And therefore, they were even to imagine how to build AI on top of it.
mm,
Now, that assumption starts to fail when we go to the pre-digital organizations, right? The banks and the manufacturing, their data layers are still not there, but the
mm,
models are assuming that it is there. That's why Google's and all that have built those models. So this gap has suddenly increased
mm.
between what AI is promising and what it is assuming the data layer maturity is. So
Yes.
yes, we need a roadmap. We need a data roadmap before we need an AI roadmap. And
Mm,
before we need an AI roadmap, we need a holistic operating system
mm,
and process roadmap. So we need to organize it in a systematic way. This is the course that we have done together in
mm,
many places.
mm. Yes.
And that systematic approach is very important. Otherwise, I get calls, hey, can you teach agentic AI to all my 200 people? And I said,
Mm,
why? They don't want to, they are domain people, some of them are digital people, but uh, just training agentic AI will not make your organization an AI first organization.
mm,
First
mm,
is to have an AI roadmap. Do you even know what are the use cases of AI in your organization? Do you have a mature data layer? So I think this transformation journey is way too complex. There is no playbook. We are trying to create a systematic playbook.
that's
Different
right.
companies are at different stages. Some are data mature, some are going through that journey, some are still in the handwritten notes kind of a
Mm,
world. So every company needs a different playbook. It's not
yes.
like there is a single website you go and everything will work for you, right? So this is going to be a journey for every company, personalized journey for every company, right? And
Mm,
systematically, we know that these are the first few layers you have to build, then the next and the next. So that is on this slide. But let me go back to resilience, right?
mm,
Three examples come to mind, right?
mm,
If I look at the great leaders, Apple CEO Steve Jobs, he went all the way down before
mm,
came back to Apple and took it up,
mm,
right?
mm,
That's a story of resilience, right? He believed
mm,
in something. Uh,
mm,
he left when things were not working out. He came back,
mm,
and then he pushed the company in a direction, right?
mm,
A story of resilience, right? Failure is part of the game, especially when you're dealing with a uncertain technology which is continuously evolving, and there's a gap between what it can do, what you expect, and adoption. Failure is going to happen. It's going to be an experimental phase. This next 5 to 10 years is an experimentation phase. So we need to
mm,
treat it like that, not like an IT phase where we say, oh, I bought a software, why is it not working? It is
mm.
not like that. The IT mindset is not going to work in the AI mindset. So at the
Right.
top, we have to change that. Another story of resilience, when Google launched Bard for the first time, right, in response to OpenAI,
Mm,
it was a miserable failure, right? A lot of
mm,
people made fun of it and all of that. And look at
mm,
where Gemini is today,
mm,
right? So did Sundar Pichai give up? No, he kept pushing, and the team
mm,
was amazing, and they kept building and building, and now they launched it in every. So that is a story of resilience, right? Copilot, for example, is
mm.
going through a big, backlash right now.
Yes.
But is Satya Nadella panicking? No, he's saying, let us rework this, let us rethink about it, right? This
Mm,
when great leaders are doing that,
mm.
they themselves are embracing failures and
Yes.
changes, and at that level, $1 trillion
Yes.
investment level,
Yes.
why as CIOs of companies we are not saying, okay, we should also be able to experiment with it, and
Mm,
then slowly adopt what is working, change what is not working, have an open mind to this kind of an adoption, right? The third
right.
pillar, people and all of that, right? So one of the difficult reasons why AI adoption is hard is not just technology, data, and all that maturity. It is the insecurity of people.
Mm,
What if AI will do this? What will I do? Is one of the
mm,
reasons why a lot of people are insecure. I'll give you an example. I built a math app long time ago. It was solving all math problems up to AI level, JE level. Showed it to a math teacher because the principal wanted to adopt in the school, and the math teacher saw the power and he said, "Oh, what will I do if your AI
mm,
will do?" This is
mm,
2015. That is
mm,
when I learned that insecurity will come in the way of AI adoption.
mm,
People,
mm.
people insecurity. If we
Right.
bring the clarity that the role of people is evolving, instead of you being a radiologist doing the grunt work of writing a report, you are not. that you are a curator of what AI is producing. If you are a reporter, you are a curator of what AI is producing. If you are a programmer, you are a curator of what AI is producing. If
Yeah.
we accept the shift in the role that humans
Hmm.
have, that insecurity should come down. But today,
Yeah.
the way it is being portrayed, right? AI will take away all jobs, all this
Hmm.
hype that is being created unnecessarily is creating
Hmm.
this anti AI feeling in people, right?
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
don't want to contribute, they don't want to learn, they don't want to share knowledge. So I think that has to go away. I think we didn't build technology to replace people, we built
Hmm.
technology to help people to move mankind forward. And if technology starts to get perceived as an anti to human society, that itself is failure of we
Right.
have
And
created
I think the
something.
point you're making on the insecurities around AI adoption
Yeah,
have been the primary conversations around how many jobs are going to go, how many jobs have already gone as a result of adoption of AI. And I
yeah,
think this conversation on increasing the value add in terms of what how human beings can contribute, and to have a conversation around the fact that the sort of reallocation or the reconfiguration is inevitable,
yeah,
as you
yeah,
start adopting technology is inevitable, is
yeah,
a conversation that is required to be had. And I'm afraid I'm not sure a lot of people are doing a good job of having this conversation with their people.
yeah,
And I think that's very important. The other thing is that even the conversation comes from a space of knowledge in
yeah,
terms of where it is that this is headed, and the kind of the clarity that you have in terms of the fact that this is not going to impact livelihoods very significantly, or if it is, then what is the interim perspective building that you require, and so on. So I think there is a lot that is required even on the in the maturity arena in
yeah.
terms of how this.
There is a formula I have, right? So think of a triangle. One side I have technology, one side I have goals, or how big an organization can think, what it wants to achieve, and one
Yes.
side is the skills of the people. Now what has happened is, because technology has moved up so much and the goals have remained the same, they are saying we don't need as many people anymore. I don't think that's the right way to look at it. The right way to look at it is, I have a set of people who I can upskill with the new technology, and can I push my goals to become a 10x company. The goal of technology was never to become a 10x reduced force workforce, it was always to become a 10x powerful company. So today, if you're running your business in an old fashioned way with technology, you can transform it, but do a lot more than that. What is that lot more you can do? Because the technology is so high, is how we should think, as opposed to saying, I'm going to do the same that I was going to do
Yes.
20 years ago,
Yes. Yes.
and with technology I need less people. So this
Yes.
triangle
Yeah.
has to be skewed in the other
Yeah.
direction,
Yeah,
move the
completely
goal
agree.
further,
Completely
and
agree.
not
I think there's
move
just so
the
many
skill set.
conversations that need to be had.
Yes,
You're so right. There's so many conversations, Dr. Shailesh, that need to be had, which
yes,
are are positive. They're encouraging. They are ambitious. They raise the bar. They kind of push people to be able to go to the next levels. That you kind of inspire people to do more than what it is that we're doing right now. And I think you've made a really brilliant point that the presumption is that your goals are going to remain static while you're going
yes,
to adopt technology, and so technology is going to reduce your efforts, and as a result of which you don't require so many people. And I think that is just such a fallacious thing to be able to presume, and also terribly demotivating in terms of asking people to participate in a transformation journey that enables technology to
yeah,
succeed.
yeah.
So, I love your triangle. I think we should share it with the people who are, sort of on the call. I'm going to move to the next image that I have, and I'm going to, I don't know if you've seen this
Mhm.
before.
Yeah,
You have a
yeah,
wide spectrum of people here who bring in their own unique capabilities, and what becomes of them, especially in terms of some of the lower applications of AI that are easily available to people, which is
yeah,
everyone sounding like everyone else. Everyone's writing like everyone else. What happens to the unique capabilities of people? And in the context of unique capabilities, I'm going to bring in many other human edge that the organization has, and how adoption of AI can impact that. So I want to be able to bring you into more like a culture and people related question, which is want to ask around the, as AI touches the value chains and creates power shifts. Middle managers can feel obsolete. Functional silos can start fighting for control. It's not uncommon. Leaders end up in unresolvable conflict. Is there a wisdom framework for knowing when to mediate, when to decide, and when to let the conflict burn itself out? I'm just wondering, and I'm simply just referring to the whole host of people who we are putting through this journey or asking to put them through this journey. On, is there any wisdom framework on how it is that you can manage the inevitable conflict, knowing when to mediate, when to decide, when to let people decide for themselves? Are we yet there, or it's just too early days? Because you're seeing a lot of good intention on this front. Some of it obviously accelerated through board restlessness and pressure. But what does one do with the inevitable conflict, the inevitable insecurities, the inevitable sort of, like we're saying, test for resilience that we actually need within the organization? Any framework of organizations already using this to be able to manage the people reaction to this transformation?
Yeah, so let me go to the fundamental of what people really need is a sense of purpose, right? And what technology is doing is, in a way, it is stealing away the sense of purpose from people and saying, you are not needed, I can do your job, right? That narrative is making people even more insecure and saying, oh, the reason for my existence was this job, and now somebody else, not a human, but AI is taking. Earlier, we used to worry about human to human competition. Now we are not competing with each other, right? We are competing with like a world level human, which is, a mix of so many levels of intelligence. You just can't compete with that, right? But this picture is very important. I have this, you have heard of this law of conservation of energy, law of conservation of matter. I have a new law called the law of conservation of intelligence. As a human species, we had a certain total, intelligence with us. We pulled it all to the internet and then to these AI models with all the data and compute and everything. Now it has been consolidated into the 20 models that are running the world. Uh, as a result of that, what is happening to human intelligence? Because our students are depending on it, our consultants are depending on it, our CEOs are depending on it, we are slowly giving off, right, the outsourcing, if you will, our intelligence to the models. It is very addictive, right? uh, as you get into it, you want to do more of it. You feel a lot more knowledgeable once you see the answer. So there's this illusion of great knowledge that is created as if you know so much. All you did was a prompt, which it
Yes.
fixed for you and did something amazing. You get a weird sense of illusion of greatness as it creeps into the human society, right? It is already starting to show very drastic results on students,
Yes.
on people who are using ChatGPT forever. Exactly this image, right? Everybody's becoming brain dead and all the AI slop and everything. I think we need to rethink our role with technology, right? It's just a tool. I'll give you an example. So if I use, for example, a word processor and it shows me the spelling is wrong, there are two types of people in the world. One will auto correct it and move on, and one will actually try to correct it themselves and then see if they got a correct spelling. These two types of people will develop their intelligences differently. One group of people will continue to become less and less spell correction people, but the other group will improve their spellings. The technology is the same. How we are using it makes us use it or makes it use us. And
Yes.
that we have to be very careful, right? The human judgment, the human intuition, the human ability to see through the hallucinations and say, well, this doesn't make sense, although it reads well, it doesn't make sense. Kind of a sense that humans have. We should stop outsourcing that also to the machines. Remember,
Yes.
the goal is a curator. If an AI doctor is giving you a diagnosis of a patient, if the doctors cannot just say, yes, AI must be right because it is better than me. I still
Yes.
have a responsibility because AI will not be held responsible. I will be. So at
Yes.
the end of the day, humans will be responsible for all decisions. uh, like a co-pilot and a pilot in an aircraft,
Yes.
nobody worries about the co-pilot. They'll blame the pilot
Yes.
only. So that
Yes.
model will still continue. Therefore,
Yes.
we still need to maintain our sanity, our wisdom, our differentiation, our intellectual capacity. And
Yes.
the danger, I wrote it in one of my posts, is not that AI will take away our jobs. It is that AI
Mm.
will take away our thinking skills, our writing
Yes.
skills, our coding
Yes.
skills.
Yes.
Skill
So
loss
scary.
is very,
Yeah.
very critical at this juncture. Now, what happens when I learned programming? We used to debug the code, write print statements, test
Mm.
cases,
Mm.
but today all that is gone. Today's
Mm.
programmers put a prompt and look at a code. They
Mm.
will never know how to program. And in
Yes.
the next generation, we will not have programmers, not have musicians, not have even scientists or leaders
Mm.
or consultants,
Mm.
because we will all have become this drone whose
Yes.
first instinct is to go after technology, right? So I tell my
Yes.
students, think about it yourself first. Write down
Yes.
your own thoughts. Do your research on Google search. Connect the dots yourself. Those are the skills. And then use ChatGPT to correct everything later. So
Right.
it should be a filler, it should be a corrector, it should be used in a right way instead of the
Yes.
first use case. If we do that,
Yes.
we'll see this more and more, and this will cause more and more slop, more and more insecurity. That
Yes.
my students, for example, told me that we did the assignment you told us, but we don't feel connected to it because we didn't
Mm.
do it. Right? We
Mm.
put the prompt and it got done.
Mm.
I don't know anything about it.
Mm.
I cannot answer any interview question because
Mm.
I didn't
Mm.
do it. So
Mm.
when people used to code, they used to have a connection with the code,
Yes.
right? This I did it, it's mine, right? I'm proud of it. All that is gone now. If the
Mm.
creator and the created have no more connection left,
Yes.
what's the point, right?
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
connection should be there. It can change the form and say, I did deep research, I came up with a great design with Claude, then I micromanaged every little box and made sure it was right. I still have
Yes.
that connection versus I'm too lazy to do anything. Here is a high level prompt, finish it off. So these
Yeah.
two, this is the new skill we have to develop. I
Yes.
strongly
Yes.
believe that we have to develop a skill on how to use these technologies. I'm not talking about prompt engineering.
Yes. Yes.
In the hands of a master
Yes.
carpenter, a hammer
Yes.
is a great tool, but in a
Yes.
hand of a little child, a hammer is a very
Yes.
dangerous.
That's
That
right.
we are
That's right.
not that we are not understanding right now. We
Right.
will understand this when we have failed the next generation of students and young leaders who will go to industry without becoming zombies like this, right? The diagram.
Yeah, and I think it's
That,
for people like yourself, Dr. Shailesh, who are in academia, to be able to
yes,
create those principles of how it is that you adopt and learn this technology, and
correct.
also to be able to become self preservation oriented in terms of not wanting to lose yourself while you
Yes,
want to appear very high tech and modern and the rest of that. Because I do understand that it's not uncommon to ask Claude for relationship advice. It's not uncommon at all to ask for medical advice from the various AI platforms. And I think that that is very perilous. And maybe we should use this platform also to be able to let people know that you don't want to lose yourself. None of these, in fact, they all have a pre-warning saying that we could easily not be right. So you must be careful about what you're using from here, because we may not be able to always be right, and you should be aware of the fact that our advice may not be right. So I think this is such an incredibly important point that you're making, and I'm glad that we made it before we've
yeah,
been able to conclude the session. I have a last slide for you
sure.
and for our audiences here today. Would you agree with this, that if you don't let go of the way in which you were doing things, this is inevitable, in the sense I see AI, like most people do, as a train that's already left the station a long time back, and
Mhm.
you got to get on this, and if you don't let go of the way you were doing things, you're going to be dragged. So do you agree? Would this be a fair, it's a Zen proverb, but would it be a
Yes,
fair note on which you'd like to kind of advise the people who are on the call here today, that this
yes,
is inevitable? So we're going to find ways. I know a lot of what we discussed here today, seem like lots of work to be done, lots of stuff still work in progress, lots of kind of confusions that need to be sort of cleared before we actually kind of get in to be able to get in the thick of this and get the value we want from this fascinating evolution and
Yes.
revolution that we're seeing around us. So,
Yeah.
let go or be dragged. Do you agree with this?
Yes, completely. And I see that, you know, that holding on to, oh, we have built this legacy system over the last 15 years. How can I let go? Right? And suddenly bring in agentic and everything completely new. That I can understand the attachment, I can understand all that. But it is like saying this, right? Let's say I have a slum and I have
Hmm.
built a digital slum in my backyard, right? Collecting many,
Yes.
many products from many, many people. And if I
Yes.
continue to just say, let me fix a toilet in this house and put a AC in this house and do little bit of bug fixes everywhere, keep incrementally improving my legacy system forever. And if I thought that was going to be my life till retirement, that is wrong. Technologies like AI come to disrupt, right? The librarian got disrupted when internet came and all that. It is the name of the game. We
Yes.
cannot keep dragging ourselves and saying, oh, this is how we do, this is how we'll continue to do. Education systems have to evolve. Banks are evolving, digital banks are coming, libraries have changed, right? The idea of education is evolving. Medicine is evolving now. AI, will be the first consumer of medical data, not the
Right.
doctor. So
Right.
everything is evolving, right? And whoever will adopt AI first, will come out happier and better with the right. And there is a danger of an early adopter too. They are the
Yes.
ones who take the most risk also, right?
Yes.
And that's why,
Yes.
a cautious second adopter who
Yes.
is, not necessarily has that much of risk appetite.
Yes.
Netflix, for example, changed the way we look at the internet, but that is not the leading, internet browser on the world today. So generally, the second, third, fourth generation systems, which have learned from the mistakes of the first generation
Yes.
system,
Yes.
are going to be,
Yes.
the ones that will emerge. But for
Yes.
that to emerge, somebody has to do the first generation.
That's right.
Somebody
That's
has to
right. Which is,
transform his bank first, make some
yes.
mistakes, go down in the history books before the second bank will learn from it and become the great bank, right? So, who
Yes.
is going to be the first and the second? That is the only name of the game. But
Yes.
keeping on with the past is not going to help us move forward. And
Yes.
that has never been the motto of human civilization. We've
Yes.
always let go of the past, by force, by competition, by war, for whatever reason, and we had to move forward. Whoever has not
Right.
moved forward has been left behind, right? So yes,
Absolutely.
this is the
So,
name of
yeah,
the game.
lovely. So before we close out, yeah, wanted to first of all thank everyone who did join in person. I must say we have a very large viewership with the recorded version, which will continue to become available on LinkedIn. But I thought I'll take a couple of comments for you, Dr.
Yes,
Shailesh. There's Tivani Moodley who's saying this topic is brilliant. As we introduce AI, we should also adopt the employee emotional intelligence and support to AI and how human elements need change management through coaching, mentorship, and
yes,
adaptability. I think we did talk about that today. Resilience from a self soft skill perspective, but not robotic, but teaching spirit. When
yes,
innovation and AI get exciting and adapting, human gets happy to adapt the new skills. So that's the way to target the change is also important. I'll take a couple of more comments because Tavni's put a few. I'm going to take Srini Vasulu saying an AI first mindset is becoming essential, but if implemented incorrectly, it can create significant risk. And we did
yes.
talk about some of those risks. We move forward to Deepak Barara, and he says, thanks for the invite to join the session. Great session, a lot of positive inputs. Glad that I have joined and learned new things today. Um, the image that we had of everyone turning out to be like each other. Someone said, "Oh, this is a real AI warning. Use it as a tool, not a replacement for your thinking." There are a couple of other comments here, which I'm glad. It's an indication of people enjoying what they are are hearing here. This has been an interesting discussion. I completely second the views presented. While I use AI where needed, I choose to work with my creativity and unique approach, mostly because that is the differentiator. And, we have a thank you here for the invite. And then we have Deepak Barara, who says AI can't replace human beings, it can only replace specialized skills. The human cannot focus on strategic, important issues which are core to business, including quick decision making. So I think he's making the point the human can focus on strategic, important issues which are core to business, including quick decision making, which is not something that AI can replace. He's talking about human ingenuity and contribution. And then there's someone else saying, thank you both. Totally agree. Bridging domain and tech is where the real gap in AI adoption is. The third role, someone who gets both languages, is what actually will make AI work. And I think on that happy note, thank you so much,
Thank you.
Shailesh. What a delight to be able to listen to you and your perspectives. You managed to simplify absolutely everything. Having said that, long way to go, lots more work to be done. But I think our message is that persist, go with it. Don't get dragged into it. You know what I mean? Go willingly and happily to be able to adopt this. And, bear in mind some of the words of wisdom, because Shailesh comes with a lot of deep experience and having worked with really large organizations and continues advising many companies on this. So thank you again, Shailesh, for finding this hour
Thank
in your
you.
calendar
Thank
to be
you.
able to have this conversation with us. For those of you
Yes.
who attended this and enjoyed the conversation, the recorded version will remain here. And please make sure that you share it with your colleagues and other people within the organization. And good luck with your own embracing AI journey within your own organization. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Shailesh.
Thank
Thank you,
you. Thank you.
team.
And just remember that, 10 years ago, we could not have imagined this kind of a scenario,
Yes,
StreamYard and, doing this live.
yes,
5 years from now, we cannot imagine what the world is going to be like.
yes.
And that number five is going to be reduced to two in the next 5 years. So I think keeping an open mind and open heart, both are important as we move forward. Yeah. Thank you
Yes,
all the best. Yeah.
absolutely. Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much, Dr. Shailesh, and thank you everyone who helped organize this. People keep watching this place for more. Can you show up the next two upcoming talking points, please? Watch out for this. This is in July 28th. This is a conversation with Dr. Arvind Chinchure. We're talking about leveraging change and disruption as a competitive advantage. Change and disruption as a competitive advantage. We're going to try and ask you to be able to come in. There are lots of use cases we are referring to. So don't miss this space. This is very important. Can't imagine any organization that is not handling some form of change and disruption, especially in these very complex, complicated times. This is from the academics, people who work with organizations even as they teach. So this is very valuable. I recommend that you join us on the 28th of July from 4 to 5. And in August, we have another treat coming up for you. And this time around, we talk to the very learned and the very incredibly respected Anil Sachdev. He runs the Soil Leadership Academy in New Delhi and is bringing out his new book, The Inspired Leader. What a timely title, right? The Inspired Leader. And we're going to bring him in to be able to read parts of the book and to be able to share absolutely pearls of wisdom coming straight from Anil Sachdeva's over 4 decades of a career. And this is a new book, and we're very interested in being able to explore this together with him. Nothing like having the author talk to you about this. So note the date and the time. We're looking at August this time, and I'm going to ask you to be able to block your time. You can see the date and the time on the screen, 4 to 5 p.m. So make sure you join us for this conversation. It's around a book, so it got parts of the book reading and so on, and we get to talk directly to the author of the book, The Inspired Leader. So join in for more and watch the space for more. Thank you for joining in today, and we'll see you at the next talking points. Take care, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Shailesh.
Thank you.